Yo, welcome in. My name is Sweet Phil, and today right here I'm bringing you a Diablo 2 Resurrection. Oh, wait a second. This is actually a Diablo Immortal video. Now today I'm bringing you a quick overview of all the different classes so you can decide which one you really want to start the game out with. So this video helps you out at all, make sure you slap that like button and put down in the comments what you decide to end up playing the game with. Now let's get after it. I do want to mention right off the bat, I get a lot of this information from a website called maxroll.gg. It's a really great place to get information on Diablo related games. So the first character is an absolute staple here that we're going to talk about in any type of fantasy game, and that is the Barbarian. Now discussing pros and cons of each build, actually surprising to me, the Barbarian actually has a large amount of AoE damage compared to other builds. In most games that I'm used to, such as Diablo 2, the Barbarian and all melee characters in general are good at single target damage, but actually here in Immortal, the Barbarian has great AoE damage. The next pro to this build is kind of subjective, but it has a fast melee playstyle which can be very fun if that's the type of gameplay that you like. Also, this character is very powerful in PvP, which isn't exactly my arena, but if that's what you enjoy, this is an excellent choice. To wrap up the pros, the Barbarian also has many choices for crowd control, and it has several amazing group buff options as well to help out your entire party. Now we'll take a look over at the cons, and this first one here might be pretty obvious, but because you're right up there in the thick of things, you take an absolutely ton of damage. So the Barbarian's obviously going to have different skills and abilities to help it survive, but when you're taking all that damage, it can get a little dicey from time to time. So over on the pro side, AoE damage was listed as a good thing, but a build can't literally have every single thing be great on it. So actually on the Barbarian, single target damage is slightly lacking. Another negative that is incredibly important to note is that this build actually has incredibly long cooldowns relative to some of the other characters. This build might be a walk in the park early on, but as the game progresses, this particular character becomes increasingly difficult as the content gets harder. The next character up is no stranger to the Diablo universe, being in previous games or resembling characters that were in other Diablo games, and that is the Crusader. Taking a look at the pros first once again, you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff as the Barbarian in fact. This Crusader has very good AoE damage, which is very excellent to have when slaughtering mobs of monsters down here on your way to hell. Now it also has a wide array of PvP skills, making it an excellent choice if PvP is your preferred way to play. It also has many effective party-wide buffs, but here's where the similarities start to dissipate. The last couple of pros for this build is that it has impressive defensive skills, and also it has incredible movement speed, some of the best out of any of the characters in the game. Now over on the cons side is where the similarity to the Barbarian rears its ugly head. Once again on this character, it has very long cooldown on its skills, and also there is incredibly low single target damage compared to some of the other characters. Oddly enough, even with the impressive defensive skills and the increased movement speed, at times it can actually be difficult to avoid damage. Unfortunately, a con for the PvP arenas here, even though it has a wide range of PvP skills, you are going to have to build your character in one particular way to make it effective in PvP, so you're only going to have really one playstyle. Unfortunately also, the primary attack for this character is a little bit on the underwhelming side. Next up is a repeat class from Diablo 3 and kind of a combination of a couple of them from Diablo 2, and right now we're taking a look at the pros and cons to running a Demon Hunter. Now the Demon Hunter varies a ton from the first two that we talked about, and the first thing that we'll mention is that it has very high single target damage, unlike the Barbarian and the Crusader. So this is the first one that we're talking about now that is primarily ranged attacks. Not only that though, you can actually shoot ranged attacks while you are moving, which is incredibly uncommon for these style of games. This character's primary attacks are very good, and actually the skill multi-shot absolutely dominates everywhere in the game. This is going to be a very popular one to use at the beginning of the game's launch. Now jumping into the cons, there is minimal build diversity. Now multi-shot absolutely slaps, but that's what everyone is going to be using when they play this character. Next up, you don't really have anything to help buff your party at all. You really are kind of a selfish character, just laying out damage for yourself. Now, because it is a ranged character, you don't really have a ton of defensive stuff to help you out. You will take significant damage when you are struck. Also, being that ranged type of play, you don't have the type of crowd control you can have with other types of builds in the game. Also, the movement skills on this particular character are a little bit on the underwhelming side. Up next, we'll take a look at the Monk, taken directly from Diablo 3 character. There isn't exactly a comp in Diablo 2 though for this particular one. A little bit of a surprise to me, the Monk actually has a lot of the same pros as the Barbarian does. It has very high AoE damage and has that very fast-paced combat if you like that type of gameplay. It also has many party buffs and different types of shield to help out your entire party. Because it has that fast-paced combat play style and you're right up there in the mix of things, you can actually pull enemies together very good, and that way you can strike many targets super quick because they're all bundled up right next to each other. Final note for the pros, this is one of the characters that has the best mobility in the entire game. Now jumping over to the con side, it kind of plays off of some of the pros that are for this particular character. The melee range is a little bit low, so it's pretty good that you can pull those enemies in close to you and get the attack, because if they're far away you can't reach them. Now, because it has that fast-paced combat, you are relying on a lot of skill combos, so if you don't like that playstyle, this one's not going to be for you. This build right here requires constant input, which generally just means it's essentially a button masher type of character. Now, while having very good AoE damage over there on the pro side, for the con tier, it once again, like the Barbarian, has mediocre single target damage. Due to the types of skills that this character has, you actually have limited choices on what you can do when you're actually playing this character solo. Next up is a fan favorite all the way back from the Diablo 2 days. It's one of my favorite characters from Diablo 2 Resurrected, and that right here is a Necromancer. Rise up, my skeletons, rise from the dead. So first off, just a personal opinion, I like that this looks so much like the Necromancer from Diablo 2 Resurrected. So because it's like the Necromancer from Diablo 2, you can obviously have minions that can help you out in any type of situation, and because of its skills, it also has great AoE damage. But altering a little bit from Diablo 2, it actually has very good single target damage as well. What everybody's going to love about this particular character, it has the absolute best ultimate in the entire game. So along with being a great character in and amongst itself, it also has very strong raid buffs as well to help out the rest of your party. Now, a few of the cons here are going to be no surprise to people who know about the Necromancer. Now, because of what he is, he does definitely lack mobility, and also you obviously are going to be very reliant on finding corpses in order to do things such as using the corpse explosion and raising up skeletons. Kind of surprisingly though, you have many short to mid-range abilities, but not as many long-range abilities. On top of that stuff, you actually have the worst class consumables of any of the characters in the game. These consumables are used to boost up you and your party to prepare for battle. Now we're taking a look at the Wizard, the ultimate spellcaster here in Diablo Immortal. Another staple in any of these type of fantasy games. The main casters on these type of fantasy style games are always incredibly popular, and I'm sure this one's going to be no exception. And that is for good reason, because this character has a ton of AoE damage and crowd control. With this wizard, you have great skill synergies that work together nicely. Along with working together great, you actually have skills that work great at range and close up, being able to attack from anywhere on the map. This is a very fun character to use in PvP if that's your preferred style of play. And also, I do want to mention, it is important, this character actually has great movement skills as well. This is a very good character to use just about anywhere. Now sliding into the cons, this is a character that has extremely long cooldowns on its spells. Now also, this character relies on many skill combos, so if that isn't the way that you like to play the game, this character might not be the one for you. Also, many of his skills require the skill shot aim, so you can't just hit one giant area, you actually have to aim exactly where you want to target with those spells. Because being a wizard, you're not really going to have a ton of survivability, so you will take significant amount of damage if you're actually hit with spells or struck with attacks. The wizard always being an incredible glass cannon, you're going to be able to deal a ton of damage yourself, but you don't really have any group buffs to help out the rest of your party.